There are shows with psychics,
and there are shows with doctors.
but there's no show like The Psychic and the Doc.
Your practical paranormal power unleashed.
This show synthesizes the talents of world-class medium Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, psychic explorer,
and street smart spiritualist, behavioral psychologist, Dr. Pat Baccili. All subjects are on the table and no topic is taboo. Inspiration, insight,
action, and fun as Mark Anthony connects callers with loved ones in spirit,
in tandem with Dr. Pat's fresh, no-nonsense, street-smart, intuitive insights. And she is hilarious.
Extraordinary problems
Require extraordinary solutions, which may come from this side
or the other side. This is The Psychic
and the Doc. And it starts now. Everybody, this is the Transformation Network. This is the Psychic and the Doc. I'm Mark Anthony, JD, Psychic Explorer, also known as a Psychic Lawyer, and I'm here with my esteemed colleague and co-host, the world-famous Dr. Pat Baccili. She's been the host of the Dr. Pat Show for the last 2 decades plus, the founder of the Transformation Network, and one of the top influencers in the psychological field worldwide. And the Psychic and the Doc, we're here to take your calls. It's 1-800-930-2819. And we have a really great show tonight.
Yeah.
Today is National Respect for Parents Day.
Yeah.
So everybody, this is time to call in and maybe I'll be able to connect you with your parents in spirit, or you can share a heartwarming story or what you've learned about your parents. I know, Dr. Pat, you talk a lot about your biological mother and your stepmother, and they were apparently 2 remarkable women that just shaped the course of your life.
Yeah. I have the triple goddess. I have my birth mother. I have I don't know, where do we come up with the term stepmother? I don't even understand that. So maybe Rocky can do some research on that. It's kind of the oddest term. So I have mom number 1, mom number 2, and mom number 3. Mom number 1, my birth mom. Mom number 2, my mom that, came in, my dad remarried. But mom number 3 was Linda's mom. And in a show where we have more time, I think we're put on a pathway, and there's this destiny. There's these little puzzle pieces that get laid out in the world. And even though really learned a lot from mom number 2, I needed mom number 3 to teach me how to be a good human being. And that was Joan Firing, Linda's mom. And I've often thought where I'd be if I hadn't met Linda and her mom and dad. Now, her dad was amazing. What I learned from Linda's dad, I don't even know how to put words in it. I learned confidence from the dad, from Bjorn. I learned, how do you learn confidence from somebody? You see, this is what parents, when we talk about parents, we ask what's been passed down. Mark, you've talked about your parents. And
Yes.
let's take a moment for that. Because when you speak about them, you speak about them in the highest of highest regard.
I was so fortunate to have the parents that I did. And, when you look back on life, obviously they were not perfect people because nobody is. Children don't come with a user manual as to, if this happens, make sure you do this. But my dad was a Navy SEAL and a NASA aerospace engineer, but he always made time for me. And he was a very busy man. He worked long hours. He always made sure he spent time with me. And I never realized how valuable that was until I started getting older. And also when I was a kid, I would notice how a lot of my friends, their dads were always absent, or their dad would come home from work and then go out in the garage, sit there and drink beer and watch a TV that he set up in the garage, ignoring the family. That wasn't my family. And my mother was amazing. She and I I was fairly close with both my parents, and they taught me very important things. My dad, I could sit here all night and just talk about what they taught me, but I remember him saying, success is failure turned inside out. And that's a really important lesson. And one thing that my mother taught me was value yourself, don't overlook yourself. And we do that a lot. People beat themselves up. Oh, I'm not successful because. Oh, I can't do this because. Or we get so caught up in what other people have, or what we're not, but don't overlook yourself. We all have a unique skill set. And so in that way, my parents taught me self-confidence. Like if something didn't pan out, dad would say, well, learn from that, turn it around, and it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up. And as long as you
Right.
get back up more than you've been knocked down, that's success.
Yeah. I think, I think about, I'm sorry, I'm a little sports oriented because of the Olympics.
Oh yeah.
I'm a little sports oriented. And, I have this interesting view of sports, being a sports person myself, but my heart always goes out. I was really struck by this Olympics. Of course, we're talking about the US gymnastic team, but especially about
Yeah.
Jordan. Jordan hung in there with the team through the good, the bad, the ugly, and missed being in the all around by like what ridiculous 2/100ths of a gazillion percent.
Yeah.
But they talked about where she got her name from. So let's talk about that. Of course, from Michael Jordan. And when you talk about failure and his view of failure, he is the guy that literally put the trademark on the word zone. And I think about what we do learn. I also want to say that we learn, even if your parents are not the Michael Jordans of the world, even if you come from parents, maybe that gave you a really tough time, because I have both. There are things that you will learn that will help shape the human being you become. And I think we forget that on this particular day.
I agree with that. And honoring our parents, and today is National Respect for Parents Day.
Yes.
It's very ingrained in our culture. I mean, even in the 10 commandments, one of the commandments is honor your father and mother. I mean, that's an important. And the way I was raised in the era children should be seen and not heard. I remember hearing that a lot. Now today it's like, oh, the child gets to say everything. I was in a department store recently, and there's this little kid, and he was about 7 years old, and he was yelling at his mother, I told you I didn't want that. I mean, just like berating her, and she's sitting there taking it. And I could see the look on other people's faces. Let me tell you, that kid was definitely not raised by my parents, because my dad would do you stop that. And if you start crying, I will give you something to cry about. Now, my parents didn't abuse me, but the thing is, there were boundaries being set up. And through those boundaries, we learned respect for ourselves, for our parents, for other people. And I do like the way when I see millennial parents, millennial fathers in particular, they're hugging and loving up their babies, and they're right in there with them. And I think that is really, really important. But respect is an extremely
Yeah.
important concept,
Yeah.
and it's something that we're seeing deteriorating throughout society.
I I watched, okay, I'm back on the Olympics, but I watched a gentleman, uh, by all age categories in my sport, and they talk about this a lot. If you're in the Chinese national arena of table tennis, if you're 22, you're going to retire or something, they said. But there was a gentleman, his name is Omar Mohammed Assar, and he is the national representative of Egypt. And yes, did he play his heart out? But what I was struck by was his dad on the sidelines. You see, you can watch a lot of things, but in this particular sport and other sports, you see who the coaches, who the fans are, who the cheering crowds are. And I think they've showed so much of that in the Olympics. It's got to rise you up. But
Yeah.
I watched his dad, and I watched this young man who I don't think many people thought he would go as far. But I watched his dad, and I watched him come over and talk to his dad. And there are those moments that you see in a level of respect that I don't know how you describe. Now, look, I have to tell you, I studied respect for 10 years. My research cornerstones, what respect is between two people. And I will tell you that one of the cornerstones of this, if you are thinking about your parents, is What are the agreements that they've made with you and you've made with them, and how well have you kept them? See, I can't help bring that up. I got to throw a little bit of that psychology in here today, Mark.
Oh, certainly. Well,
But in the end, it's not hard to respect. It's
right.
also not hard to forgive. So today's show is going to embrace all of that. Today, we want you to think about one thing, not sure what it's going to be for you, one thing in the life that you've had with your parents where you can pinpoint a moment of respect. Now, I will tell you this. Here's my caveat. I got to say it because I don't want people emailing you. I'm probably going to get called out for this by the spiritual community, but I'm telling you right now, I am not talking about parents that are perpetrators, that are bullies, that
Right.
that
Abusers.
have
Yeah.
done horrible things. I'm not talking about that. And I do know there are some psychologists that will help you get to a place of something with them. Today, let's all try to rise up in this moment. And we've got a live call-in show here. Not only, Mark, are you going to do what you do so fabulously and connect people, but we want to help you connect in this earth plane. When you get to me, that's going to be my focus. 1-800-930-2819 for those of you out there. Mark, before we go to break, you got to tell people what you're up to and how they're going to find out about it.
Oh, I got a lot of things going on. Tomorrow night, I'll be on Coast to Coast AM. That starts at 10 p.m. Pacific, 1 a.m. Eastern. And I'm going to be interviewed by George Norrie, and we're talking about the title of the show is UFOs. Why are some people abducted and others aren't? And I'm going to be sharing the insights that I have from the readings I've done for people who claim to have been alien abductees that I've done readings for. And this includes some of the most credible alien abductees in the world. So that's going to be an out of this world show. And then next week on the 9th and 10th, I've got 2 online light circles. And the light circles are limited to 6 people. Everybody's guaranteed a reading. And so tickets are on sale now, but they're going fast. We only got a couple left. And then in the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 25th of August, I'll be in Phoenix with Rocky at Helping Parents Heal. And even though the conference is sold out, you can purchase an online pass, and you can find out about all of this by visiting the calendar of events on my website, which is afterlifefrequency.com, which is afterlifefrequency.com. And that's just what's going on in August. So I'll hold position there because Rocky's got me booked on all kinds of great things. And we're going to be going to the phones shortly. This is a call-in show, 1-800-930-2819. Dr. Pat, remember you said, Rocky, look up definition of stepmother. Did you see that
Yes.
in the chat? Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so because I have thought about it, but where the heck it comes from? Thank you, Rocky. 8th century Latin word, steop, meaning orphan. We need another word. I just think we need another word. I think we need another word. Often when surviving parent remarries the woman or man, they step into the place of the parent.
Oh, that makes sense.
The child
They-
grieves.
that-
Okay,
I mean,
thank you, Rocky, for that.
well, it
I
makes sense
get it
because
now. They step
yeah,
into. They step
in,
into.
they step into the role. I always wondered about that too. Thanks, Rocky. Yeah, it's a Latin word, steop. I guess that's steop or steop. Anyway, I mean, I've certainly as an attorney and as a doctor, we've all had to learn Latin terms, but
Oh,
that doesn't mean we're pronouncing it the way the Romans did. So,
well, on another note, this is the moment. Take a breath. When we come back, take a breath. This is the show of respect. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Hey,
we are
everybody. Oh, go
Uh,
ahead, Mark.
no, I say we are
I
back
wasn't
with
sure.
Dr. Pat
I missed my
and
cue.
that's right. Go ahead, Dr. Pat. We are back.
Just so you all know, this is a live show. This is what happens in a live show. You get to like show up like a real people, like a real show. I want to just mention for those out there, we have talked about the support group. Let's just talk about it again.
Yes.
We talk about the support group that is available out there for people. Please, can you just talk a little bit more about it so folks understand? Yeah, it's a grieving process, but you don't have to do things alone.
No, helping parents heal. I mentioned earlier that I'll be one of the keynote presenters at Helping Parents Heal convention in Phoenix, which is going to be the 22nd through the 25th in Phoenix, Arizona, and people can purchase online passes. And Helping Parents Heal is a beautiful organization, and it was formed by two women, both of whom lost children, and Elaine Boisson and Irene Volvatis. And I remember when I met Elaine Boisson, she was a presenter at International Association for Near-Death Studies. And Rocky and I met her, and she's just very, very charming, wonderful woman. And we started talking to her, and she said that Helping Parents Heal is an organization that helps shining light parents. And we asked, well, what do you mean by a shining light parent? And she said that, well, there's terms for a child who's lost parents, that's an orphan. There's the term widow, widower, but what's the term for parents who've lost a child? And shining light parents means that the light of that child shines eternally in the hearts of their loved ones and eternally from the afterlife frequency. And I thought that was such a beautiful term. And
Wow.
what's really awesome about Helping Parents Heal is their belief is that you can recover. A lot of groups say that, you'll never recover from the loss of a child. And as everybody knows, that is the most devastating loss of all. But they incorporate counseling, a sense of community, and mediumship. That's why there's a number of high profile mediums that will be presenting at Helping Parents Heal, because they also believe it's important to establish a spiritual relationship with your child and spirit. So Helping Parents Heal is an international organization. I believe that there will be over 1,000 attendees in Phoenix, and it's at the Wild Horse Pass, the Sheraton at Wild Horse Pass in Phoenix. So if people want to find out more about it, please visit my website, the calendar of events at afterlifefrequency.com. And for all the parents out there who are shining light parents, Dr. Pat and I are here for you.
Yeah.
This is like we always let Helping Parents Heal know about the psychic and the doc. And I rest assured, Dr. Pat, they know about us. They
Yeah.
definitely know about us.
Yeah. And I just want to say, I want to mention something you all are going to hear on our network. And I just want to mention it now, Mark. You're going to hear from a fabulous new show that's coming. And Orly Cormier is the host of that show. And her body of work and her calling is about intentional wellness coaching. However, it's very, very special. It is for parents. It is for parents having children, but it's especially in the realm of cancer and wellness. And she has stepped out on a very large pathway, because I cannot tell you how many calls we've had where we've heard people talk about losing someone, and myself losing two people, both the mom that I was friends with, her daughter, both to cancer. Orally has been called to really step out there as a phenomenal nurse anyway, but step out there and say, this is a body of work that we need to pay attention to.
Right.
This is an area that we can do some work in. We are taking your calls at 1-800-930-2819, 1-800-930-2819. Now, you want to talk about the Olympics.
It's really amazing when you see these Olympians, and then the camera will flash to their parents.
Yeah.
And wow, what it must be, what a thrill for these parents to see their child there in the Olympics. And also I saw one of our Olympians, I believe he was a swimmer, and he ran over to his wife and new little baby boy, and he was hugging and kissing
Mm.
them. And it was like, that is just amazing. One thing, the Olympics being in France, the French really pulled a coup d'etat by having the surfing competitions in Tahiti, French Polynesia, which is 10,000 miles from France, but it is a French territory. And just the photograph of that one surfer in midair standing
Oh,
next to a surfboard. I mean, that has got to be definitely the picture of the year, maybe of the decade. The photographer said it was years of experience and luck. I mean, so the photographer
yeah.
even knows that he lucked out on that. And it's amazing because growing up in a surfing culture, I remember when the United States Surfing Association was formed, and surfing had never been taken seriously, and now it's evolved into an Olympic sport. But also, I really enjoy the swimming and the gymnastics. I felt my heart broke for Brody Malone. He's one of our the captain of the men's gymnastics team, and they did a backstory on him where a couple years ago he fell and broke his leg, and he's got 9 pins in his hip, and but he's recovered and he's done all this. But then you could see when he was doing the pommel horse and then the bar,
Yeah.
I saw like I could see like it looked like he strained his wrist and he fell, and then he fell on one of the other events. And the problem is they've been training so hard that his body gave out, and it was a crushing blow. But nonetheless, our men's gymnastic team still managed to pull off the bronze medal. So congratulations
Yeah.
to them.
Congratulations for sure.
But when I saw the look on his father's face when he fell, they flashed from Brody to his father. You could just see the anguish, and there was no anger, there was no disappointment. He understood what was going on, and that's really important for all the parents out there. Everybody wants their kid to be, the Olympic medal, winner, the football champ, the smartest kids in the class. Um, but sometimes they're not. And just because it's possible to not win, but still not have done anything wrong. And it's important not to put so much angst, so much pressure on your kids that they develop this complex. And Dr. Pat, as a
Yeah.
psychologist, I bet you've come across a lot of adults
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
now trying to reconcile issues. And what we do on this, and then I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Pat, is it's better, I think, to resolve those issues while both of you are here on planet Earth. Otherwise, you're going to need me to establish the connection to try to help rectify that.
Yeah.
What's your take on that, Dr.
I
Pat?
want to talk about the culture. I want to talk about the cultural change in sports for a minute because it's very difficult to talk about parents in sports without talking about the cultural evolution. And, back in the day, first of all, women, except for a handful, were even talked about in sports. So let's just hold that thought for a minute. So when you had that culture of sports and parents, you had parents that were so fully involved. I mean, everything from managing you from age 3. I mean, this was them. This was the burden that they took on because there was nobody else to fill the gap, right?
Right.
And you watch that evolution, and that was not even tough love in sports. I'm going to talk about tough love today. I'm going to talk about tough love in regard the women's soccer team. But that was just brutal. I mean, anyone that had children trying to rise up, there was enormous pressure on them. However, there were some cultural communities where the matriarchy was a primary foundation. I mentioned Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Has anybody seen the Michael Jordan film there? You see the role the mom played in that. But the emotional and psychological damage of failure And I say that word because we didn't know what we know today about the impact we have on the words we say, on what we do, on the punishment we give out. Now, fast forward, let's go a couple decades. We now had, especially in football, it's not just football, but football seems to get the highlight. We now had coaches called out for their horrific behavior,
Yeah.
horrific behavior. But what about the players? We rarely take a look back. And what about that documentary that talks about the players and the players that felt under the palm of that? Mark, when you're successful and you're a Michael Jordan or, maybe a Steph Curry or a Caitlin Clark, when you're in that realm, you're at the top of your game. So we don't really talk about it very much.
Yeah.
But when you're not in that category, you're in no person's land. You're in a space of almost nothingness for your support or even acknowledgement. And I think that's what we're talking about. Now, do you step back and give those parents respect? I say that you do, because the larger culture really permeated a level of behavior that we now know was completely inappropriate. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And parents also need to realize the immense power that they wield. When children are toddlers, mommy and daddy will never lie to you. Okay, that's what a child thinks. And then they find out that Santa Claus isn't real, so people have been doing that. But and I have no problem with children believing in Santa Claus. And as I've explained it to children in my family, that, well, Santa Claus may not be an actual person, but Santa Claus represents the positive, the kindness, the compassion, the joy that is symbolized by Christmas. But the thing is, a parent could say something to a child. I mean, I've heard people say to their children, "I wish you were never born," to a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. You do
Yeah.
that, they're going to end up describing that to a psychologist at some point in their life. I mean, if they're taking the healthy approach to dealing with that.
Yeah. That right there. I just want to say, everybody, zip it up. As much as you're getting arguments about your children, as much as they are, whatever they're doing, maybe they're addicts, maybe they're alcoholics, maybe they're doing things you don't want them to do, but you can't take that back. You can't take those words back. And this is very important. A lot of the work I do is on mindset. And I do work with people on what I call mindset transitioning. And the reason I call it mindset transitioning is because somewhere we read in some book that we take out a magic wand and we can change our mind. Well, okay, maybe we can, but you have to have some transition. Simone Biles, perfect example
Yeah,
of
yes.
mindset transitioning, right? Many others in the field. You could see that at the Olympics, but there's many people on a day-to-day basis that don't really know what that means and how to do it. And one of the things we're talking about today is having a mindset transition. I have to tell you, Mark, I would love to hear your take on this because you talk to so many people. My belief is that you have to have a mindset transitioning approach before you can contemplate the notion of forgiving. That's just me, though.
Well, yeah, no, I think that because people say, "I forgive you," it's like, well, saying it and meaning it and
Ugh.
feeling it are three different things.
Mm,
And a mindset, changing a mindset, because let's say that you had a parent that may not have been physically abusive, but still was always criticizing you. And,
mhm.
in my parents' generation, they would often try to, I don't want to say put you down, but always say that you could do better. It's like, well, I got a B plus on this. Oh, you didn't get an A?
No, they
That
would
type of
put
thing.
you down because that's the way that they were inculcated. I mean, they did do that. That was their, what do
Exactly.
you call it, mode of operation.
Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine who's an attorney, he was talking to me about his parents, and he said, "I can't do anything right." He said, "I could go to my parents and say, 'Mom, Dad, I was just appointed to the United States Supreme Court as a justice.'" He said, "You know what they'll say? 'What? You mean you're not president?'" So it's like nothing is ever enough. And and parents aren't trying to hurt their children when they say that. You think that you're motivating them. On the other hand, you don't want to just tell them, well, it's okay if you're totally mediocre. I mean, I heard this one woman say,
Mm.
I just want my children to be average. I don't want them to stand out. Well, let me tell you, that was not how my family operated. My parents wanted us to succeed, wanted us to have our own businesses, work for ourselves, have our own identities. But so rewarding mediocrity is also not a value. When you look at the Asian culture and the Asian subculture in the United States, you hear a lot about Asian children, Japanese, Korean, Chinese, people of those heritage. And the children are having tremendous amount of stress because of the demands that their parents put on them to succeed. So on one hand, it makes for entrepreneurial and successful children. On the other hand, it gives them a lot of anxiety and psychological dysfunction. So, Dr. Pat, as a psychologist, where's the balance in that?
I'll tell you,
From
no,
yeah,
I'll tell you, nobody says it better than Jim Fannin, who is, you're not going to hear a lot from Jim because he has a very private practice as the top coach. He is the coach of champions. Chances are he's probably coached these people in the Olympics right now. But when he developed his score system, you come out of the gate and the first thing that he talks about is self-discipline. You've got to have it. And so where I fall out on this is, what can you do to instill a level of discipline to the degree by which, as a parent, you and your child must achieve. And by the way, parents, if you're not showing it, don't bother trying to convince your kids to do it, because they could see right through that. But you have to develop more than just discipline. You have to enact more than just the D word. The idea of self-discipline is an automatic internal mechanism that says, if I want to receive gold medals at the Washington State Championship in singles, now I'm talking about myself, then I better be doing a lot of singles. And guess what? I didn't do a lot of singles, and it showed. See, I didn't have the self-discipline in that sport, in that one event. Now, why is that? Because I had 2 other doubles events and I felt so responsible to my doubles partners. But if you want to achieve great things, you have to really look at the whole picture. And it really is self-discipline more than just that discipline word. And that is hard to achieve. Now, I can't talk to various cultures. I will tell you this, that almost everybody that I play with, they're from a culture that's either Asian PI, Asian, they're from there. They just happen to be. They're the best. It's clear the Olympics. They're the best. United States, Lily, you did a great job, girl. I'm telling you, you really showed your stuff. But they're the best of the best. What do they do to achieve that level? There was a commentator the other day that commented on one of the athletes and said, "Oh my God, he's 33. Omar, he's 33 years old." He said, on the Chinese national team, you retire at 23. So there are different standards. And I
wow.
think we have to be mindful of culture. We really do. It's hard to say what it is, but I will tell you what's not okay. Ever. Not in a sport, not in coaching. What's not okay is pushing a person to a place they don't want to go themselves, and therefore cause a breaking point that they would
Oh,
not have had. Do you understand?
I
You see,
do.
if I want to achieve, if I'm in a family and I'm like, I do not want to go to that college. I want to go over there to Stanford. And that is your goal. Then you have to set the standards up for that child that helps them get there, but not by judging them, berating them. But you see, that's the difference in self-discipline. Self-discipline allows you to cultivate your own desire set point on any given thing.
I like that because the self-discipline, if it's reinforced by the parents, is a positive thing. I had a friend in college, and I remember he was telling me how much he hated being a football player. And I said, "Yeah, but you're a football player." He goes, "My parents made me." He
Yep.
said, when I was 12, I had to start playing in junior high, then high school. He said, I didn't, because, oh, we all play football in this family. He says, I hate it. And it's the thing I'll say about my parents. I mean, they definitely motivated me. I always was a good student. I was always in the, top 5% of my classes and all that. And they certainly didn't like it if I started slacking off on homework or something, which I very seldom did, but they reinforced that. But they never forced me to do
Yeah.
something I didn't want to do. They didn't make me join some sports
Yeah.
team or some club or some organization. And usually when I would join something, it'd be because I remember when I was a little kid, I wanted to join a chess club, and they were like, okay, they're all excited about that. But the thing is, they were supportive in a positive vein. A big problem young people have is finding something that they're interested in, a group that they want to be affiliated with. And with social media, things have changed because now there's all these online groups and things like that. But having a device and playing on a phone and or a computer, iPad, what have you, is not the same as the human interaction. And I think it's important for all people, but especially children in their developmental stages, to be a member of the scouts or some organization, or if they are athletes, to be part of a team. And if they're not athletes, if they're the kids that the smart kids that want to be part of the chess club or the science club, then they should do that. Because when you find your own tribe, you feel so much better. The worst thing is, and when I was growing up, I was a medium. Okay, so that made things weird enough. I was a real smart kid. All right. And my brother was the athlete. He was the surfer. He was the Joe Cool, and all that. And, I was always, oh, that's Earl's little brother. I was always Earl's little brother, which was cool because I love my brother and all. And he always, looked out for me. But the thing is, I felt very isolated a lot because I was different. But my parents never made me feel weird. Probably because they were both mediums too, but
Yeah.
that was why mom would say, don't overlook yourself. And so, and mom was real gregarious and she liked, she was always the life of the party. And they, by their example, taught me to fit in everywhere, even
Yeah.
if I didn't. I remember
That's very cool, Mark.
they were
It's
real cool
very
about
cool.
that.
Yeah.
Well, I got
Yeah.
along with everybody in high school. And then when I was practicing law, I remember one time I was at a bowling alley because I used to go bowling a lot, and I won a bowling party. And so I said at the bowling alley, I said, okay, so I won this. So was I get like 2 or 3 lanes? They go, no, we're going to give you 20 lanes. I go, 20 lanes. And so I put out notices to all my friends, and my parents showed up. There were people from every strata of society. You had white people, black people, Asian people, Hispanic people. There were, I mean, cowboys. There were gay people. I mean, there was this. I remember my mom goes, "What is this? The United Nations?" But I said, but it's the way they raised me, is to value everyone, respect. We're talking about,
We're talking about
national
respect
respect.
today.
Respect everyone, no matter who they are. There's an old saying that everyone in the world is my superior, and that I may learn something from him or her. And
And
they taught me that.
this is really the key. Um, in the world we live in today, and let's just talk about this a minute. We're so over, there's a lot of conversation about social media, social media. I just want to go back in time. I just want to remind everyone, probably many of you were not even born, but I will tell you what happened. That this craze of social media that we're having, and the worry and the concern about it, it reminded me of the evolution and development of the television. Okay, now I don't know when that was happened. I wasn't born yet, but I will tell you what happened in our society. What happened was, here came the TV with its what, 3 channels? I don't even
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But at some point it got to 11. And I'll tell you what happened. What happened to that, there are 3 generations, not just, there are 2 decades of children that this happened to. Nothing would take the place of the moms sticking them in front of the TV. And that's what you did. And so when everybody talks about, oh, you're not exercising, the what happened to multi-generational children born in the 60s, 70s, right? Coming out of
Right.
that, late 50s, 60s, 70s, you were TV obsessed, completely TV obsessed. And we don't talk about that. And somebody asked me the other day about how you feel about social media. And I said, what do you mean how I feel? Well, what do you think the impact's going to have? I said, you need to either catch up or shut up. And they looked at me like, really? I said, think about it. We can sit here and talk about social media. It's not going away. You can sit here and talk about AI. It's not going away. But what are you doing it? What kind of critical culture are you creating within your family about it? And by the way, if you don't want your children to have cell phones or do social media, don't give them to them. But then what are the consequences of that? Do you know that TV, from a psychological perspective, became the #1 punishment device?
That's right. No TV. Ah! And what is it now? What is it now? They take your phone away.
They try to take your phone
Try to
away.
take your phone away, no computer. So,
Good luck
back
with
in
that, folks.
well, in the late 50s when television hit, and certainly by the 60s when television was every family had a TV. It's funny, I was watching that series, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. It's a great comedy. There's a lot to it. But she has two kids, and she's always doing this career, and her son's always sitting in front of the TV, and it's set in the late 50s, early 60s, and basically her child is being raised by the television. And so they did a good a takeoff on that. Now you look now and you hear about children being bullied online. Well, then don't be on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. But the social interact. See, when I was a kid, my social network was called Outside.
I was just going to comment.
Yeah, and all the kids we get together, we'd play
I love
softball
playing
or
outside.
whatever. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, it was great.
stickball,
Yeah.
roller skating. Are you kidding me? You know, but did you do that? Were you allowed? Can I ask you, were you allowed to watch TV? Because I hear some folks say, like, from my generation and even before and even after, I was not allowed to watch TV. I'm like, really? Where did you live? Like, the only people in my family didn't watch TV were at my grandma's house, where she didn't even have an out. She didn't have a bathroom. That's where you don't watch TV. But I think actually grandma did get a TV. But I don't think there's a difference at the moment between that transitional cultural change in society and what we're talking about. We're not even talking about cell phones and social media much anymore. Actually, the problem isn't that. You know what it is? It's the same thing we went through it during our generation and multiple. It's not the device, it's the addiction to the device.
Exactly. It's people who don't sleep. They're up in the middle of the night texting people, posting stuff on Instagram. And studies have proven that cell phones and the computer, it stimulates the part of the brain, the same part of the brain that is affected by addiction. It eliminates your ability or reduces your ability to sleep, and you become addicted to it. And I see this with myself. I'll wake up in the morning and the first thing I want to do is grab my phone. And now I've made it a habit. No, I don't do that. And at night, there comes a time about 2 hours before bed when I don't look at email, I don't look at the phone, because all of a sudden I'll get on the computer and I'll start doing things. And I'm a writer, so I'm always coming up with ideas, but I also got to realize your brain needs rest. You need a break from this constant input. I mean, think about it. In let's say in the year 1900, how many people realistically traveled more than 20 miles from their home? Probably not at all. Now we have worldwide information beaming us. A volcano goes off in Indonesia and we know about it. There's a war in the Middle East, we know about it. And it's funny, people say the world is getting really terrible. It's like, no, the world has always been this way. It's just now we're aware of it. People talk about, well, the good old days. Well, when exactly were those? Was it World War II? Was it the Great Depression? Was it the Cold War? Was it Vietnam War? Was it the Roman Empire? Was it the Crusades? Earth has never been utopia. But because of advanced telecommunications technology, we're aware of it. And that awareness is a double-edged sword. If you're aware and if you study about it, it makes you informed. Otherwise, it's just a source for stress.
It's so funny because I can remember I'm really we're coming over and we're compiling some things because we're really going to talk about our 20th year anniversary coming up. You know, going at the end of this year and into next year, we're really starting to talk about it. And I could recall they're starting to pull some old clips, and there are some things I've said on air, especially when I've learned a lot. Let me just say I've learned a lot. But I used to say things like, "Oh my God, why did we have to kill Cleopatra?" See, I'm not you. It just
Yeah,
some things didn't make sense to me.
yeah,
Like, why? And I would get bombarded with history, and they'd come on the show and they'd start talking about it. And I said, I don't get it. You didn't tell me why. Well, da, 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 da. No, but why? Why would you want to kill Cleopatra? Why? And then I would say, okay, wait for it. Okay, you're going to probably have to cut this out, Emily. Then I would say, there's only one reason that you would want to kill Cleopatra. She's a woman. OMG. Now, I can say things like that now because I get more people agreeing with me. But when I first started to do the show, people would be shocked.
yeah.
It brings me to this next point. I want to ask you about this because I want to go full circle on this. We have access to more information
Than ever.
than ever. And yet, I am a woman, and mama number two, Doris, hello, mama number two, mama number one, but mama number two. This is a woman that grew up in the South, and any racial anything that came out of our mouths, she was old school. I'm putting the soap down there. This is what I grew up with. I don't talk about this part of my mama very much. This is a woman that marched. This is her. I got an email from somebody that knows me and said, you know, your mother Doris would be rolling over her grave right now. And I didn't know what that meant. Because I don't stay plugged into news and 24/7. I don't care in the United States where you come from, what you grew up with. Boy, I just pray we get to a level of respect where we don't tear down people's parents because of their race, maybe because they
Yeah.
were of Indian descent. I want to get to a place where we don't do that. I don't want to do it, especially in the political arena. Now, I know we got a lot of work to do because the reality of this is it's going on. But man, it's painful to hear and watch. It's
And
just
it's
painful.
ridiculous. It's the 21st century in the United States of America. We all got to be something. Um, I mean, Rocky and I, we had dinner with one of our colleagues, and we had him on the show, Brian Smith. We had him on the
Oh, yeah,
show.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You know, he's an African American, but he's also a descendant of Thomas Jefferson. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, there we
Right?
go. Okay. We all got to be something. It's funny because my African American friends, they look at my hair and they go, Where's your family come from?" I go,
Yeah.
"Well, part of them comes from southern Italy." And they're like, "Yeah, we were wondering where you may have gotten that North African hair, you know." And when you study the history of that area, I mean,
Yeah.
North Africans invaded it, then the Greeks, then the
Oh,
Romans, then the
Sicily?
Spanish, then
Oh,
the
come
French.
on.
I mean, all over the place. It's like, and these people that are all hung up on racial purity, it's like, yeah. It cracks me up that this is even a discussion. And
And
I
it
think
brings
that
us back to respect, though. I mean,
it
this is
does.
what I wanted to say, and I wanted you to really close this out with this. I studied respect for 10 years in different arenas, and my dissertation and all of my research talks about it, but I want to bring it full circle to the show. We talked about respect for parents, but there's a bigger conversation here. And I wanted to have you weigh in and really bring home the message of this show. Respect is a multidimensional, multi-energetic layer, a vibration and a frequency. And when it doesn't exist, the opposite might. Would you bring us home with that, Mark?
Absolutely. Respect is a vibrational frequency, respecting the boundaries. It's your rights end where my nose begins. Let's start there. And respect is where you honor another person, you show deference for them, you acknowledge that everyone has value. And when people start respecting each other, you find that things become more balanced energetically and there's tranquility. Why is there war in Gaza? It's because both sides don't respect the other. Same thing in Ukraine, same thing for social strife in this country. Whenever you are finding a reason to put someone down, you're not respecting that person. So respect is about energetic balance. And with that, the psychic and the doc, we're going to be back next week because that's what we do. We are here for all of you. It will also be a call-in show next week. And sometimes we have shows where we don't get callers, but that's okay because everyone needed to hear about respect.
Yeah.
Everybody here has parents, whether you knew them or not, and it's important to respect your parents, and through that respect, learn to respect yourself and others.
I just got 2 text messages from somebody that said, Pat, you and Mark are talking about respect. I'm going to answer this. Can you think about a couple of situations in the Olympics where you've seen it? Yes. Let me get to it right now, real quick. The relationship between Lily Zhang, Lily Young, and Anthony Edwards, football and ping pong, the relationship between the table tennis team and these other Olympic gymnastic team, these other people, the relationship that was bonded through a little disenfranchisement there, that showed respect. But here was the moment yesterday for me. Quarterfinals badminton, women's badminton. I watched 2 countries play. You watch Thailand play, and then you watch Taipei play. And these 2 women, they battled it out. I have never seen a championship game, and I wish all of these people would do this. I have never seen this. Both of them turned and bowed 4 times to the audience. They both came together and hugged to each other, and they acknowledged each other in such a beautiful way, and that is respect. And you don't see it, and you don't see it much in Olympic sports. And I'll tell you, I cried. That's
beautiful.
Respect.
That's respect.
Wow.
I don't think we're going to be able to top that ending. So everybody tune in next week. The Psychic and the Doc, once again, we'll be on the clock. All right.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning into The Psychic and the Doc with Mark Anthony and me, Dr. Pat Baccili, right here on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Hey, look, come back next week so we can explore with you more of life's many challenges and learn from fascinating guests. And you know what? Even Mark and me. We'll connect you and discover insights from people in this life and from the afterlife. Extraordinary problems? Yeah, they do. They require extraordinary solutions. But step into the world of possibilities with us on The Psychic and the Doc. That's every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on TransformationTalkRadio.com. That's TransformationTalkRadio.com. And don't forget, we're also live face-to-face on Facebook.com, Transformation Talk Radio.